Welcome back. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Sehgal. The United States is constructing a massive American embassy in Lebanon's Beirut. It is a $1 billion fortress in the heart of the country. And this new American embassy will be the second largest in the world. The question being, why is the US government spending $1 billion of American taxpayers in building this embassy? I will get you the details on the show tonight. Also on the show, Russian spy vessels are probing British waters, taunting the potential weaknesses in the UK's defence. The UK Navy tracked it for 2 days until it entered Dutch waters. And the war in West Asia seems to be shifting tracks now. While the war in Gaza has subsided, the battlefield now seems to have shifted to the West Bank. The Israeli army has announced plans to carry out major military operations in the West Bank. Finally, on Gravitas, is TikTok safe for your child? In the latest incident, 6 families in France are suing TikTok for pushing harmful content that played a huge role in their children's suicides. We'll tell you about that and a lot more lined up on the show tonight. Let's get started. Our top story tonight is about America. The United States is constructing a massive embassy in Beirut's Lebanon, a $1 billion fortress in the heart of the country, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. This new American embassy will be the second largest in the world, following the one in Iraq. You see, even before the construction of this embassy is completed, questions are being raised. Why is the US government spending $1 billion of American taxpayers' money? That also on a new embassy complex in a country with only around 86,000 Americans. After all, Lebanon is a relatively small country. Its entire territory is just a narrow strip along the Mediterranean coast. It is also a region frequently subjected to attacks. Is this just an embassy being built, or is it more of a fortress designed to conduct secret operations in West Asia? Well, we are not asking these questions. Former British diplomat Craig Murray has published a video asking about this massive American project. The video is titled, "What the hell is that?" Have a look.
States Embassy complex here in Beirut. And what you're seeing there, that massive range of buildings, that's only a part of it. That's about a quarter of a new complex. It's being built here. That is the second largest embassy in the world, of any country anywhere in the world. The second largest embassy in the world is being constructed here in Beirut by the United States. And we can't find out officially from the State Department, but we understand that the complex is built to house 5,000 staff.
An embassy to house 5,000 staff. Murray says that the unofficial word on the street indicates that the under construction American embassy will accommodate 5,000 staff members. Well, according to reports, this new embassy is built in the suburb of Afkar, which is around 16 kilometers from the center of Beirut, that is next to the site of the current embassy. The compound, which has been under construction since 2017, looks more like a city of its own. Sprawling over 43-acre site, the complex is larger than any government facility in Lebanon. For context, it is about 10 times the size of the one in Nine Elms, London, almost 2.5 times the size of the land the White House is built on, and almost double the Pentagon size. Well, no specific reason has been offered for building such a huge structure in Lebanon, and that also about 100 kilometers from the Lebanese border with Israel. He mentions that he used to be an ambassador and understands how embassies operate. He then asks, doesn't the idea of an embassy this big with 5,000 staff members seem a bit excessive, especially for a small country like Lebanon? What kind of an embassy requires the construction of thousands of acres of land? Well, to get more information, WION reached out to Craig Murray himself. Our correspondent Ghadi Francis sat down with the former UK diplomat, and here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
It's like no embassy I've ever seen. An embassy, a very large embassy, something like the British Embassy in Washington or the Russian Embassy in Washington, will have a maximum of 400 people working inside it. This building, this series of buildings, is being built for 5,000 people. And there's nothing in the functions of an embassy which requires that number of people or that extensive a series of buildings. And Lebanon is a tiny country. It's the size of Connecticut or Yorkshire. It has a population of 5 million or a little more. And this is the second biggest embassy in the world. Why are you building the second biggest embassy in the world as the embassy to a tiny country? The whole official story makes no sense whatsoever.
In the video Murray posted on YouTube, he speaks with Leela Hatum, editor of the West Asia-based digital outlet called MENA Uncensored, who calls the project the biggest secret in Lebanon.
What kind of an embassy is that that's built on thousands of acres of land? It has underground dungeons.
Yeah.
That includes detention cells. It has basically what you call pathways underground that lead to the sea, because that's where they have the other escape route. They do have their own helicopter pads, and basically they can fly to Cyprus in and out. And it's as if you're going into a fortified CIA barracks. That's it.
Well, according to the journalist based in Lebanon, America is building a fortress of CIA cells and detention centers. This fortress is intended to run secret prisons, spy on Lebanon and the surrounding region, and also serve as a hub for flights to Cyprus. Hatham further says that this facility is not an embassy, but rather a fortified CIA base. Is that truly what it is? A spy fortress equipped with underground cells and detention centers? If so, what are America's plans for Lebanon and West Asia? You see, the US State Department says that the primary purpose of any embassy, it is to help Americans in a host country. However, Hatum contends that this huge embassy is designed to further what she describes as a project of hegemony. She claims it will help America exert control over Lebanon and the region as a whole. Now remember, Lebanon has been the target of repeated bombings and terrorist attacks by Israel, especially late last year. The country is currently in a fragile ceasefire with Israel, which has been consistently breached through Israeli bombings of civilians. North of the Blue Line demarcation, a line intended to serve as a border with Lebanon. Despite the truce, Israel has damaged and destroyed hundreds of buildings in Lebanon. That's within the first 40 days of the ceasefire. The IDF also reportedly set up various positions across southern Lebanon. Moreover, let's not forget the Israeli and American-supported Syrian rebels who recently toppled the Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria. Following this, Israel reportedly took control of a major portion of Syrian territory along the Lebanese border. What then is the US planning to do in Lebanon? The country is home to only 6 million people. It is currently in the process of rebuilding after months of Israeli bombings. What is the purpose of such a huge embassy? Craig Murray suggests that it will merely facilitate a shadow Lebanese government. He claims to have worked in various embassies around the world, and he's certain that this building is not just an embassy. Well, we now shift our attention to the United Kingdom, where Russian spy vessels are brazenly probing UK waters, exposing potential weaknesses in the UK's defence. Speaking in the UK Parliament, Defence Minister John Healey said Yanta, a Russian spy vessel used for intelligence and mapping critical infrastructure on the sea floor, entered UK waters on Monday. And the UK Navy tracked it for 2 days until it entered the Dutch waters. Healey said that the Russian ship entered the UK exclusive economic zone about 72 kilometres off the UK coast.
I changed the Royal Navy's rules of engagement so that our warships can get closer and better track the Yanta. So far, the ship has complied with international rules of navigation.
Healey further said that this is the second time that Yanta, which is a Russian spy vessel, has entered British waters in recent months. In November last year, the ship was detected loitering over UK critical undersea infrastructure.
But, Mr. Speaker, this is the second time that Yanta has entered our waters in recent months. In November, the ship was also closely watched and detected loitering over UK critical undersea infrastructure. To deter any potential threat, I took measured steps then as part of a clear direct response to the Russian vessel.
Incidents of potential sabotage of power cables, telecom links and gas pipelines have increased in the Baltic Sea, and that is following the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine war in 2022. But the frequency has increased recently. Since November last year, there have been at least 3 incidents where underwater cables have severed in the Baltic Sea. Meanwhile, Russian ships are also having a similar impact on NATO. In the Gulf of Finland, elite divers and submersible drones are being sent to the seabed to probe potential sabotages. Well, as a part of the Operation Baltic Sentry, a NATO mission to patrol and protect gas pipelines and internet cables in the Baltic Sea. A fleet of ships, including a Dutch frigate, a German mine hunter, a Dutch survey vessel, a Swedish warship and a French minesweeper are also reportedly expected to arrive soon. Furthermore, the UK has also decided to send maritime patrol and surveillance aircraft to help NATO's efforts. Now, with Healey stating that the UK would also deploy an advanced AI system to help safeguard undersea infrastructure, while the UK extends support to NATO, the situation is not so straightforward, especially domestically. UK military preparedness has reportedly crumbled. According to UK's Internal Ministry of Defence calculations, the country needs to increase defence spending to 3.6% of GDP, a staggering 56% increase from current levels, to modernize its military, protect its nuclear deterrent and also meet NATO obligations, which in light of the UK's stretched finances is reportedly impossible. And the situation for UK gets grimmer. In March last year, the Deputy Chief of Defence Staff admitted that UK forces could not sustain a conflict with Russia for more than 2 months. And that is due to major resource shortages, adding that the country does not have the ammunition and the reserves of equipment to fight a prolonged war. His comments came just a few months after an inquiry by the Commons Defence Committee, which found that UK's armed forces were not ready for a war with Russia, especially without urgent reforms to reverse a recruitment crisis in the country and also to dramatically strengthen Britain's stockpile of weapons and ammunition. The UK is clearly at a very critical juncture. It may have to invest heavily in defence or face risks of further Russia incursions. Russia is testing UK's boundaries, probing its defences, and at this moment finding them wanting. So while Russia's tensions with NATO and UK continues to rise, the Russia-Ukraine war is nearing 3 years, and now US President Donald Trump has warned that he will impose high tariffs and further sanctions on Russia, that is, if Russian President Vladimir Putin fails to end the war. Writing on his social media platform Truth Social, he said that by pushing to settle the war, he was doing Russia and its president Vladimir Putin, and I'm quoting here, a very big favor. Trump had earlier said he would negotiate a ceasefire in a single day, that's in the span of 24 hours. Responding to Trump's comments, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that Trump had often applied sanctions against Russia in his first term as the president, adding that Russia remains ready for dialogue.
Мы очень внимательно наблюдаем, конечно, за всей риторикой, за всеми заявлениями. Мы фиксируем тщательно все нюансы. Мы остаемся готовы к диалогу, об этом президент Путин неоднократно говорил, к равноправному диалогу, к взаимоуважительному диалогу. Этот диалог имел место между двумя президентами, опять же, в бытность первого президентства Трампа. И ждем сигналов, которых пока не поступало.
Well, on Tuesday, Trump told a news conference that he would be talking to Putin very soon. Putin has on various occasions said that he is prepared to negotiate an end to the Russia-Ukraine war, but that Ukraine would have to accept the reality of Russian territorial gains, around 20% of Ukrainian territory. Meanwhile, Bloomberg reported on Thursday that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he could engage in direct peace talks with Putin if Trump provides Kiev with security guarantees, adding that he wants to secure a commitment from Trump to defend Ukraine before engaging with Putin. Zelensky signed a decree banning himself from any negotiations with Putin in the fall of 2022. But he appears to have changed his stance. The question that remains is, will Putin blink after Trump's warning? We now shift our attention to Palestine. The war that raged in Gaza has subsided, but the battlefield seems to have shifted to West Bank. The recent ceasefire in Gaza brought a momentary sense of relief for the Palestinians. For more than a year, Gaza was under relentless bombings, leaving over 47,000 people dead and displacing nearly the entire population. But just as one part of Palestine seems to cool, another has ignited. Reports from the West Bank reveal a sharp escalation in violence as Israeli military operations and settler aggression intensify. Just hours after the Gaza ceasefire took effect on January 19th, Israeli forces began constructing new checkpoints across the West Bank, reportedly cutting off farmers from their lands while sealing civilians living in cities like Hebron and Bethlehem, to reportedly preventing Palestinians from gathering and rejoicing prisoner releases who were let go in a swap for Israeli captives held by Hamas as a part of the deal. Simultaneously, Israeli settlers are seizing the moment. They have expanded illegal outposts and launched violent attacks on Palestinian villages. These outposts, often deemed unlawful under both international and Israeli law, they continue to grow unchecked. Local rights groups allege that Israeli settlers under the protection of the military are setting homes and vehicles ablaze and also thrashing the residents. Well, earlier this week, settlers attacked 2 villages in the northern West Bank as well as villages further south in Mazafir Yatta and around Ramallah as well. This surge in violence coincides with shifting global dynamics. In the United States, newly inaugurated President Donald Trump has already signaled a departure from past policies. His administration lifted sanctions on groups linked to extremist settler movements and also key figures opposed to Palestinian statehood. They now occupy influential positions. Experts suspect a quiet deal may have been struck with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to halt the war in Gaza and perhaps turn up the pressure in the West Bank. This measure, though, may have been taken for political reasons alone. You may wonder why. Because, reportedly, the potential for an Israeli operation in the West Bank as well as the growth of illegal settlements could have been done to incentivize Israel's far-right finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, so that he could perhaps remain in Netanyahu's frail coalition, rather than pull out and collapse the government as a way to go against the ceasefire in Gaza. Smotrich is known to be a vocal advocate for expanding Israeli control of the West Bank. In West Bank's Jenin refugee camp, Israeli forces launched a major military operation on Tuesday. The operations continued for the 3rd day in Jenin and surrounding areas. At least 12 people have been killed and 40 injured so far in the operation. The IDF forces reportedly told local media that the operations in the camp are expected to continue for the coming few days as well. Experts meanwhile warn that all these escalations are only the beginning. The International Crisis Group predicts a further surge in Israeli military campaigns aimed at quelling any kind of Palestinian resistance. Palestinians in the West Bank now live under constant threat. For many, the memory of Gaza's destruction looms large, fearing that they too may have a similar outcome. The West Bank stands at a perilous crossroad at this point of time. Well, on to the US now, where millions are crippled by rare record-breaking disasters, fire and snow. Americans are reeling from 2 natural disasters, while California is witnessing fresh wildfire in LA, prompting evacuation orders for over 50,000 people. The situation is polar opposite in Texas. A rare winter storm is disrupting lives in Texas, Florida, and Louisiana. The question being, what explains these extreme climate events? Our next story telling you more.
They say man proposes, God disposes. And for California, the story cannot get more literal. Weeks after multiple fires ravaged parts of LA, and just when things were starting to settle down, more fires broke out, raising hell. On Wednesday morning, a new wildfire erupted in the rugged mountains north of Los Angeles, which rapidly spread to more than 9,400 acres. Fueled by strong winds and dry brush, it sent thick plumes of smoke into the sky. In less than 24 hours, the fire had charred nearly 16 square miles of trees and brush. That's how fast it had spread. Through the day, the fire grew bigger and more dangerous, challenging firefighters in the region who worked overnight to contain it.
Our hopes tonight are that we are able to make further progress on the fire. Hopefully the winds will subside, our relative humidity will increase, giving us the upper hand on the fire. Typically, this is when we make the most progress on the fire, allowing us to go into the next operational period ahead of where we started.
Officials warned people in the Castaic Lake area of LA County that they faced immediate threat to life. To tackle the situation, authorities have reportedly placed more than 50,000 people under evacuation orders or warnings. Meanwhile, much of Southern California remained under a red flag warning for extreme fire risk due to strong, dry winds. But that wasn't all. Late on Wednesday night, another massive brush fire broke out near Los Angeles' Bel Air neighborhood, one of the city's most affluent regions. Aerial images showed the extent of damage. Helicopters were seen flying over the giant blaze, dropping water on the fire. The firefighters are overwhelmed, as all efforts are proving to be insufficient in the face of Mother Nature. These new fires have erupted even as the Palisades fire in Pacific Palisades and the Eaton fire near Pasadena are active still. The wildfires have continued burning block after block into ash and rubble. The Californian sky has turned orange from blue due to the fires burning all around. But nature, as you know, can get unpredictable to the point that as LA reels under fires, parts of Texas, Florida and elsewhere are blanketed in thick snow, a rare snowstorm sweeping through south of the US. Drone footage from Wednesday showed streets of Florida covered with snow. The storm is historic. It has dumped snow at levels millions haven't seen before, bringing Houston and New Orleans to a near standstill over the past 2 days, shutting schools and businesses and disrupting public life. This is the seaside of Florida, where instead of water, one can now find ice and snow. What explains this? Experts say moisture from the Gulf of Mexico combined with a low-pressure system led to this massive, unprecedented snow cover. America is reeling under both fire and snow, albeit in different parts of the country, a harsh reminder that Mother Nature always has the last word. Bureau Report, WION.
Our next story is about two presidents and one tale of hypocrisy. I'm talking about Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Both have used their presidential powers this week to issue controversial pardons. In his first interview after taking office, Trump suggested that former President Joe Biden should be probed and even indicated that he should have pardoned himself on his way out of the White House. While he did not specify any particular offenses, Trump argued that Biden should face the same kind of legal scrutiny that he endured before being re-elected. And yes, the term pardon has surfaced quite a few times this week. First, just 15 minutes before leaving office, Biden granted a number of pardons, notably to family members such as his brothers, sisters, and in-laws, as well as to members of his administration, including Dr. Anthony Fauci and General Mark Milley. These pardons were a part of a larger wave that Biden claimed were meant for non-violent federal offenders. The same day, Trump, in the first few hours of taking office, pardoned 1,550 people convicted for their involvement in the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol Hill. His move drew heavy criticism from Democrats as well as media outlets. They condemned Trump's mass clemency for the January 6 defendants, while largely overlooking former U.S. President Joe Biden's actions. The question being, what explains this hypocrisy? Haven't both presidents abused their presidential power to pardon? Then why is one labeled as bad while the other is treated as good? Haven't both Biden and Trump set a dangerous tone for future presidents? Well, let's take a step back and look back to the framing of the American Constitution. The framers had recognized that the power to pardon resembled more of a monarchical authority than that of a republic. They believed in a government of laws and not of men, as noted in the Massachusetts Constitution of 1780. Still, the tradition of royal pardons was deeply embedded in the American society, alongside the belief that even the most serious offenders deserve mercy at times. During the ratification process, the primary objection to the pardon power came from one George Mason. He argued that the president should not have the authority to grant pardons as it could lead to self-serving decisions. Mason proposed that the presidential pardon power should not extend to treason and warned that it could allow a president to disrupt justice and potentially undermine the republic. Well, does that sound familiar to you? If it does and you're thinking of January 6th and its aftermath, well, you are not mistaken. Trump's act of pardon, while possibly fostering some degree of domestic unity, shows his personal self-interest. And the story is the same for Joe Biden. His pardons for family members, including his son Hunter, also comes from self-interest. Sure, one might argue, I would do the same for my family, but the reality is this. A president in a democratic country is expected to uphold a higher moral standard. The bottom line is, America finds itself with various pardons from both the sides. They're self-serving, something that the framers of the American Constitution wanted to avoid. Yet, here we are, both presidents have let down democracy and the people of America. Indian actor and comedian Kapil Sharma has become the latest star in Bollywood to receive a death threat. According to the Mumbai police, Sharma has joined the bandwagon of stars like Rajpal Yadav, Sugandha Mishra and Remo D'Souza, who have also received threat mails in the past few months. An FIR has been registered with Amboli police against an unknown person. Officials have said the threat email was sent from Pakistan. The email read, and I am quoting here, "We are monitoring your recent activities and we believe it is important that we bring to your attention a sensitive matter. This is not a publicity stunt or an attempt to harass you. We urge you to treat this message with utmost seriousness." That's what the email said. The sender signed off as Bishnu. Officials have further said that a reply from the star was demanded within 8 hours if they wanted to avoid facing consequences in their personal and professional lives. Now, at a time when a line of Bollywood stars are facing several threats, Mumbai police has informed that they are probing into these complaints with utmost urgency. Last week, an intruder attacked Saif Ali Khan at his Mumbai residence. The actor was stabbed 6 times and suffered grave injuries as well. During his interrogation session with the Mumbai police, the alleged attacker had revealed that he initially aimed to attack actor Shah Rukh Khan but was unable to enter his home. And that is due to his high security measures. The rise of TikTok has sparked a lot of debate about its safety, especially for children and teenagers. The video sharing app exposes children to violent and harmful content online. And in one such heart-wrenching incident, a 15-year-old girl killed herself after she was repeatedly shown self-harm content on TikTok. Recalling the unfortunate day, her mother, Stephanie Mystery, described how her day went from light to darkness in a fraction of a second when she found her daughter lifeless in the bedroom where she died by suicide. Mystery has blamed TikTok for her daughter's death and alleged that the algorithm on the video sharing app kept on promoting suicide methods and tutorials, engaging users to go beyond mere suicide attempts.
3 years ago, I had no idea what kind of content social media platforms were pushing towards my daughter. If I had imagined that the content had to do with child sexual abuse, rape, physical violence, violence in general, ways of killing oneself and promoting suicide, you can imagine that. And she already had limits on her screen time. I would have never given my blessings for this application.
While she goes on to say that her daughter was bullied and harassed at school, but it was TikTok that amplified her emotions and brainwashed her, further compelling her to kill herself. Mystery and 6 other families are now suing TikTok France, accusing the video sharing app of failing to moderate content and exposing children to harmful material. Meanwhile, TikTok has said that its guidelines forbid any promotion of suicide and that it employs 40,000 safety professionals worldwide. The company has further said that it refers users who search for suicide-related videos to mental health services. In yet another incident, a mother in Florida is suing Character AI, which introduces word-based games to its offering of initiating abusive and sexual interactions with her teenage son and encouraging him to take his own life as well. The lawsuit accuses Character AI of negligence, wrongful death, as well as intentional infliction of emotional distress. Well, according to the lawsuit, the young boy had started showing extreme dependency on the AI app. He would sneak his phone or find any other devices to continue using the app. Sometimes he would also give up his snack money to buy the monthly subscription. In all these cases, the parents have blamed TikTok or any AI-based app for the death of their child. However, scientists have not yet established a clear link between social media and mental health problems, further outlining that there are perhaps no current studies that suggest that TikTok is more harmful than any other rival apps such as Snapchat, X, or even Facebook.
The platform should enforce a real tool to assess the age of the users, and that's really something that we need to kind of push forward. It's not acceptable that basically there are even children under 13 years of age who are massively using those social media.
While most teens use social media without any major harm, the real risk lies with those already facing challenges such as bullying or family instability. We're now cutting live to Davos in Switzerland, where US President Donald Trump is speaking remotely at the World Economic Forum, delivering his first major speech to global business and political leaders. Take a listen.
Momentum and what we're doing and going to do. My administration is acting with unprecedented speed to fix the disasters we've inherited from a totally inept group of people and to solve every single crisis facing our country. This begins with confronting the economic chaos caused by the failed policies of the last administration. Over the past 4 years, our government racked up $8 trillion in wasteful deficit spending and inflicted nation-wrecking energy restrictions, crippling regulations, and hidden taxes like never before. The result is the worst inflation crisis in modern history and sky-high interest rates for our citizens and even throughout the world. Food prices and the price of almost every other thing known to mankind went through the roof. President Biden totally lost control of what was going on in our country, but in particular with our high inflation economy and at our border. Because of these ruinous policies, total government spending this year is $1.5 trillion higher than was projected to occur when I left office just 4 years ago. Likewise, the cost of servicing the debt is more than 230% higher than was projected in 2020. The inflation rate we are inheriting remains 50% higher than the historic target. It was the highest inflation probably in the history of our country. That's why from the moment I took office, I've taken rapid action to reverse each and every one of these radical left policies that created this calamity, in particular with immigration, crime, and inflation. On day one, I signed an executive order directing every member of my cabinet to marshal all powers at their disposal to defeat inflation and reduce the cost of daily life. I imposed a federal hiring freeze, a federal regulation freeze, a foreign aid freeze, and I created the new Department of Government Efficiency. I terminated the ridiculous and incredibly wasteful Green New Deal. I call it the Green New Scam. Withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord and ended the insane and costly electric vehicle mandate. We're going to let people buy the car they want to buy. I declared a national energy emergency, and it's so important, national energy emergency to unlock the liquid gold under our feet and pave the way for rapid approvals of new energy infrastructure. The United States has the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we're going to use it. Not only will this reduce the cost of virtually all goods and services, it'll make the United States a manufacturing superpower and the world capital of artificial intelligence and crypto. My administration has also begun the largest deregulation campaign in history, far exceeding even the record-setting efforts of my last term. In total, the Biden administration imposed $50,000 in additional regulatory costs on the average American household over the last 4 years. I have promised to eliminate 10 old regulations for every new regulation, which will soon put many thousands of dollars back in the pockets of American families. To further unleash our economy, our majorities in the House and Senate, which we also took along with the presidency, are going to pass the largest tax cut in American history, including massive tax cuts for workers and family, and big tax cuts for domestic producers and manufacturers. And we're working with the Democrats on getting an extension of the original Trump tax cuts, as you probably know, by just reading any paper. My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt. Under the Trump administration, there will be no better place on earth to create jobs, build factories, or grow a company than right here in the good old USA. Already Americans' you can see this, I think, maybe even in your wonderful, wonderful room that you're all gathered together, so many of my friends, but Americans, the economic confidence is soaring like we haven't seen in many, many decades, maybe not at all. Upon my election, it was just announced that small business optimism skyrocketed by 41 points in a single month. That's the highest ever. There's never been anything like that. SoftBank has announced between a $100 and $200 billion investment in the U.S. economy because of the election result. And just 2 days ago, Oracle, SoftBank, and OpenAI announced a $500 billion investment in AI infrastructure. Other companies likewise have announced billions and billions and billions, adding up to trillions of investment in America, in the United States. And it's also reported today in the papers that Saudi Arabia will be investing at least $600 billion in America. But I'll be asking the Crown Prince, who's a fantastic guy, to round it out to around $1 trillion. I think they'll do that because we've been very good to them. And I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down, which, frankly, I'm surprised they didn't do before the election. That didn't show a lot of love by them not doing it. I was a little surprised by that. If the price came down, the Russia-Ukraine war would end immediately. Right now, the price is high enough that that war will continue. You got to bring down the oil price. You got to end that war. They should have done it long ago. They're very responsible, actually, to a certain extent for what's taking place. Millions of lives are being lost. With oil prices going down, I'll demand that interest rates drop immediately, and likewise, they should be dropping all over the world. Interest rates should follow us. All over, the progress that you're seeing is happening because of our historic victory in a recent presidential election, one that has become quite well known throughout the world. I think a lot of things are happening to a lot of countries. They say that there's light shining all over the world since the election, and even countries that we aren't particularly friendly with are happy because they understand what there is a future and how great the future will be under our leadership. America is back and open for business. And this week, I'm also taking swift action to stop the invasion at our southern border. They allowed people to come in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It was ridiculous. I decided and declared to do, and very, very importantly, a national emergency on our border, immediately halted all entry of illegal border crossers, of which there were many, and began promptly returning the illegal trespassers back to the place from which they came. That action, as you've probably seen, has already started very strongly. I've deployed active duty U.S. military and National Guard troops to the border to assist in repelling the invasion. It was really an invasion. We will not allow our territory to be violated. After 4 long years, the United States is strong and sovereign and a beautiful nation. Once again, it's a strong, sovereign nation. In addition, I'm pleased to report that America is also a free nation once again. On day one, I signed an executive order to stop all government censorship. No longer will our government label the speech of our own citizens as misinformation or disinformation, which are the favorite words of censors and those who wish to stop the free exchange of ideas and, frankly, progress. We have saved free speech in America, and we've saved it strongly. With another historic executive order this week, I also ended the weaponization of law enforcement against the American people and, frankly, against politicians, and restored the fair...
And well, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is joining us live on the broadcast. Hi, Susan. This was U.S. President Donald Trump's first address to global leaders, and he clearly hailed the golden age of U.S. and made an announcement that everybody should make goods in America. Talk to us more on that and how he signaled that America is back and open for businesses.
Right. He started by talking about those investments in AI, which he announced just a couple of days ago. He also talked about trade policies, which we knew he would talk about. He said that market participants are eager to gain insight into the U.S. market after his election. He also talked about potential tariffs on imports from China, Canada, and Mexico. And while he did not name them, he said that if you are going to make your products in the United States, we're going to give you very good tax breaks. If not, then tariffs will be imposed. Remember, those tariffs against these 3 countries in particular may start from February 1st if an agreement is not made. He talked about his economic initiatives. He talked about deregulation, tax cuts. He talked about a lot of domestic issues and the executive orders that he's been signing, criticizing the previous administration. Of course, he alluded to the Ukraine-Russia war. He said that it should have stopped a long time ago. He talked about Saudi investment in the United States and called on OPEC to lower oil prices. Saudi Arabia was a noteworthy mention. Remember, not only has he talked to the Saudi king during his second term, non-consecutive second term, but the first international visit that he made during his first term was to Saudi Arabia as well. So the Middle East is obviously on the president's mind.
Right, Susan, thanks very much for joining us on the show and getting us, sharing your insights with us on Trump's first speech with the global leaders. Bangladesh is facing mounting economic challenges as both public and private investments remain stagnant. Experts warn that without immediate action, the country could plunge into severe economic crisis. Unemployment was a key driver of demonstrations last year that led to Sheikh Hasina fleeing the country in August. And the economist Mohammad Yunus becoming the country's chief advisor. But since the revolution, the situation in the country has only grown worse. At the end of September 2024, the number of people seeking employment in the country of 170 million hit 2.66 million, which is a 6% increase from 2.49 million the year before. This is according to the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics. Well, the International Monetary Fund warned in September last year that Bangladesh's economic activity had slowed majorly, while inflation remains at double-digit levels. According to planning advisor Dr. Wahiduddin Mahmood, private investment has been stagnant due to political instability and economic uncertainty. The manufacturing sector, including the important ready-made garment industry, is struggling with disruptions caused by labor unrest and also financial constraints. The government's expenditure has also slowed down, with economic slowdown having a direct impact on employment. Young graduates are facing difficulties in finding employment, with 87% of the unemployed workforce being educated individuals in Bangladesh.
The country is going through such a situation that the young people are getting depressed. Personally, I'm also depressed about whether I will get any job at all. It's a secondary matter whether I will go abroad. That too may happen after 1 or 2 years. I want to do something within the country first, but it's not happening.
The private sector, which provides 85% of the country's jobs, is struggling due to low investment and rising operational costs. Meanwhile, the government is emphasizing tax reforms to strengthen public spending and create employment opportunities.
Every year, 1.7 to 1.8 million new graduates enter the labor force, but our private sector is not developed that much and there are not many new opportunities as well. It's not a problem of the last 6 months or the last 2 years. Rather, we are experiencing this for the last 7 to 8 years.
Well, experts warn that without a major revival in investment and economic expansion, the middle and the lower income groups will continue to bear the brunt of rising inflation, and Bangladesh's economic and employment crisis will only worsen. The question being, can the economist Mohammad Yunus revive the country's economy, or is it already too late? The earth is hiding secrets deep within. Beneath our feet, below the surface, there lies a realm of mystery and wonder. Our next story tells you about an astonishing find. Well, there are mountains 100 times taller than Mount Everest, hidden deep below Earth's crust. Take a look. Which is the world's tallest mountain? Mount Everest sitting pretty at 8,848 meters. The icy peak of the mountain on the crest of the great Himalayas of southern Asia is the ultimate dream of every mountaineer. But what if we told you that it is nothing but a geological pebble compared to the planet's true giants? To know the tallest peak, we need to go deep, very deep. Imagine mountains 100 times taller than Everest, hidden in the deepest regions of our planet. These aren't mythical formations, but scientifically confirmed geological marvels lurking within the Earth's mantle. One massive rocky island sits beneath Africa, its twin nestles under the Pacific Ocean. Scientists have uncovered a geological marvel that challenges our understanding of planetary structure. In a study published in the Nature journal, researchers explain how these huge mountains reach heights of about 1,000 kilometers. These mountainous islands are not mere geological footnotes. They are billion-year-old formations existing in what researchers call a rock graveyard, a zone where tectonic plates collide and sink. Discovered through seismic wave analysis, these mountains emerge at a critical threshold between Earth's metallic core and rocky mantle. These mountains are dynamic, potentially superheated regions born from the planet's molten heart. Contrary to popular belief, Earth's mantle is not a liquid magma pool, but a semi-solid realm capable of flowing like an incredibly slow fluid. These underground mountains might be crafted from subtly different materials or superheated by proximity to the planet's incandescent core. The implications are profound. These hidden mountains demonstrate that our planet is far more complex and alive than we can comprehend. They represent an intricate dance of geological forces, a reminder that Earth's most spectacular landscapes might exist far from human perception. Bureau Report, WION World is One. And that's all that we have for you on the show tonight. Thanks for watching Gravitas. Keep watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?